Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisecha Shunyavadi Paschatati Chatadine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radhe, Jaya Radha, Krishna Radha, Krishna Radhe, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jagat Gurudev Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Read the introduction together. Page 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Paramatma Prabhu, can you read the English for us?
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who was established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me the shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brothers Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Dasa and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Oh my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like the Gayatri's, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my to Krishna Chaitanya, Deva,
Prabhu, can you kindly mute everybody, being the host? Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
And just mute everybody, it will be nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, carry on, Prabhu. Where were you? Paramatma Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I finished. I said I finished the last.
You finished? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Okay, dear devotees, welcome to class this evening. So we stopped last week, we stopped at verse 7, and we said that that was the turning point of Bhagavad Gita. Everybody remembers that. Because that is the verse where Arjuna submitted to Krishna as a disciple. Paramatma Prabhu, for some reason I can't share my screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you please
make you a co-host, Maharaj? Okay.
Yeah, if you can just undo that so I can share my screen, thanks.
Yeah, you can share now, Maharaj.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're on, right? So we're doing from chapter verse 8 today. So last week we read verse 7, where Arjuna submitted to Krishna as a student. And we said that their relationship changed from that of friends to that of guru and disciple. So as you can see, it's very nicely illustrated in this picture over here, where Arjuna is very submissively sitting at Krishna's feet. And obviously at this point asking him, questions, and there's Krishna now taking the role of a guru, and he is starting to explain everything to Arjuna, the science to Arjuna, so that we could all benefit. Okay. So we're going to start reading chapter 2, verse 8. In my book, it's on page 74. Page 74, text 8, chapter 2. Nahi prapashyami panudayat yachchokam uchashanam indriyanam avapya bhuma asapatnam ridham rajam suranam apichadipatyam. Okay, who's reading for us first today? Sharath Prabhu? Hare Krishna? Please read for us.
Hare Krishna, Pranam Mataji.
Pranam Prabhu.
Mataji, sorry Mataji, I lost Mataji. Which verse Mataji?
It's text 8 on chapter 2, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes, one second.
I can read the translation and the purport.
Yeah, yes, one. Oh.
Maybe you can read halfway through the purport. It's quite long. Let's see how it goes.
Mataji. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, yes. Yeah, sorry, 1 minute. 7, yeah, 8.
8.
Yeah, okay, Mata. Hare Krishna. Translation: I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to destroy it, even if I win an unrelented kingdom on the earth with the... Can you please help this? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yes, Mataji.
Unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty.
Yeah, sovereignty like that of the demigods in heaven. Purport. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religious and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve a real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away as problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such per, per, perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc., are also useless in solving the problem of life. Help can only be given by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the born of a spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, he is the real spiritual master.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
And,
We can stop here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so from here we can understand that it is very important to have a spiritual master. Only when one approaches a spiritual master will the knowledge flow, and only then can one succeed and advance in spiritual life. But also very importantly, you'll see that I've highlighted it here in red, that Lord Chaitanya said that one who is master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is a real spiritual master. So it doesn't mean that, only if you're academically and materially qualified in some sort of profession, then it automatically makes you eligible to become a spiritual master or guru. That's not a true qualification. Not to say that a professional person can't be a guru. If he's totally Krishna consciousness and he has, many material degrees behind his name, but the underlying thing is if he is Krishna conscious, if he's addicted to Krishna, if he's Krishna conscious, if he's a pure devotee, then yes, he can be a spiritual master. But the most important thing is that he's got to be God conscious or Krishna conscious. And even up here in the purport, it says here that it appears that Arjuna, speaking of Arjuna, was unable to solve his real problem without his spiritual master. So what was Arjuna's real problem? Who can say what Arjuna's real problem was? Petruta Mataji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The problem here in this verse is that Arjuna finally his spiritual master and accept Krishna like his spiritual master. This I understand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mata. So Arjuna's real problem was that okay, let's just take 5 here. Just don't forget that Arjuna was an elevated devotee and he was only playing this role in past time. He's playing the role of not understanding, just for our purpose, so that Krishna could deliver the science of Bhagavad Gita to us again. So in that role of his, Arjuna appeared not to understand the real problem in life. He was identifying at that point with the body. He wasn't understanding at that point that the soul is eternal, and even if he kills people on the battlefield, that they would not really die, but their bodies would die. So that's why it says here, unable to solve his real problem without the help of a spiritual master. So he was really perplexed prior to this, right? He became weak. Remember in the verse before this, we said due to miserly weakness. So at that point, Arjuna approached Krishna and said, please help me, Krishna, because I'm unable to solve the real problem in my life. Now that's when we approach our spiritual life. Get the spiritual understanding, to get elevation, right? Okay, so Who's going to read for us now? Katruta Mataji, would you like to take it from here, please?
Hare
It's up on the
Krishna.
screen. Start from it.
Sri Sudra Naya Ye Krishna Tad Bhavata Se Guru Haya. It doesn't matter whether a person is Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is a perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8.128. So, without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature. Satkarmani Puna Vipra Mantra Tantra Visharada Avaishnavo Gururna Syad Vaishnava Svapacho Guru. A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna consciousness. Padma Purana.
Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna. So see, it says here again, I highlighted it in red. The qualification to be a spiritual master is Krishna consciousness, or a Vaishnava, a God conscious person, can be a leader, right? So your bodily concept of caste and things does not matter. That's what it says here in Padma. Okay, Paramatma Prabhu, would you like to read for us on the screen?
The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all the facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. Shall I continue, Mataji?
Continue, please, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentations for family life, for family, social, national, or international inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought, therefore, refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment, but the cataclysms of material nature, even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Shine punya matya lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve the problem definitely, and that is a way of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Okay, so here it's going on the same point, right? How we need to take spiritual knowledge from a true Vaishnava. So also on this point, we all may not be initiated devotees. That's okay. It's a process, it's a path, and it happens at the right time for different people. So that's okay. But as long as you are taking to the path of Krishna consciousness, or God consciousness, you are chanting your japa, chanting your rounds, and you are engaging in a relationship with Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And how do you engage in this relationship? By doing exactly what we're doing right now. reading and discussing his purports. Aren't we reading and discussing Srila Prabhupada's purports? So in this way, Prabhupada is preaching to us directly. Not so. So that in that way you can do it, and it's a way of purification. And as we said before, Krishna is seated in all our hearts as Paramatma, and he knows our desires. And when the time is ready, then everybody would advance at their own pace, as they desire, and when Krishna wills it. Everything happens by the will of Krishna, and we've just got a desire. Okay. So here also it goes on to talk about the problems of material existence, and we spoke about this briefly previously in our early classes: birth, old age, disease, and death. And remember, we said that these four problems are only present in material existence. They're not present in the spiritual world. Spiritual world is free from all these things, and therefore most of us, we try and we desire to reach the spiritual world. Okay, so just some notes here. Prabhupada says that real happiness is transcendental to the senses, but we relate to enjoyment to the senses, right? So real happiness means not to enjoy the senses. Therefore, we refer to it as transcendental. It's above the material platform. But most of us, we relate to our senses for enjoyment. This is false enjoyment, right? Arjuna said that his senses are drying up. And Arjuna was referring to what? His superficial senses. He therefore needed a guidance from his spiritual master, and in this case, it was Krishna. So Krishna was there to solve his real problem. And his real problem was that he was falsely identified. So Krishna was there now to teach him and give him the understanding of spiritual. Right. And Krishna also says in one of the verses in Bhagavad Gita later on, he says that he gives us the understanding by which we can come to him. And whom does he give that understanding to? To those who desire it. Okay. Arjuna desired it, and Arjuna approached Krishna in a humble manner, and he got the knowledge. So likewise, we need to learn to do accordingly. Right, so now we're moving on to verse 9, where Sanjay speaks. Remember, Sanjay is relating everything to the blind king, Dhritarashtra. So Sanjay is now hearing the conversation and relating further. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktva hrishikesham gudakeshaha parantapaha na yotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim babhuvaha. So Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So Veronica Mataji, you want to read for us?
I'll read, not right away, but a little bit later.
Okay. Okay. All right, no problem. Hare Krishna. Usha Mataji?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mata.
Hare Krishna. Yes, I'll read.
Thank you.
Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies, Parantapa. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end.
All right, so we all understand this. See, Dhritarashtra, he was quite happy, very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight. Because remember, we discussed that Dhritarashtra wanted his sons to win the battle so that they could take over the kingdom. So unfortunately, he's going to be very, very greatly disappointed soon, because now Krishna has submitted to the highest authority, who is Krishna himself. So some notes here on this point. Arjuna spoke to Krishna, and here Krishna is referred to as Rishikesha. We discussed this at great length previously as well. Rishikesha means the master of senses. In this instance, Krishna was guiding Arjuna's senses. He was directing Arjuna's senses, and therefore he's referred to as Rishikesha. We also would like Krishna to direct our senses, but what do we need to do first? We need to surrender. Arjuna will try to satisfy Krishna. Likewise, we must satisfy Krishna's senses and not ours. Because now you're going to see how Arjuna will stand up and fight, because he's going to also fight for, apart from the fact that he's going to fight because he now gets the understanding that it's his duty, he's also going to fight to satisfy Krishna. So likewise, we must do services to satisfy Krishna's senses not. When we cook for Krishna. When we sing for Krishna. So that's satisfying Krishna, not ourselves. Satisfaction of senses is binding to the material world. Satisfaction of our senses. But satisfaction of Krishna's senses is spiritual and liberating. Now, Prabhupada says that when one becomes Krishna conscious, one becomes a master of his senses. Just like Arjuna is master of his senses, and therefore in this verse itself is referred to as Godakesha. With this verse, yeah. See, Evam Uktva Rishikesham, that is Krishna, then Godakesha Parantapa. Godakesha is referred to, Arjuna is referred to as Godakesha, right? Because he's master of his senses. And Arjuna is now a student of Krishna and he will be enlightened. Also here, on this note here, Arjuna is referred to as Parantapa. Parantapa means the chastiser of enemies, right? So you see I highlighted these three words. Godakesha Parantapa. Controller, he's master of his senses, Arjuna, and he's also a chastiser of the enemies. Okay, let's move on to chapter 2, verse 10. Verse number 10. Tam uvacha Rishikesha prahasan iva bharata senayor ubhayor madhye vishittantam idam vachah. Okay, who wants to read for us now? Sankarshan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Sankarshan Prabhu. Can you unmute for us? Yes, Himani. Okay,
Hare
Dave,
Krishna.
thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I'll read that purport for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely Rishikesha and Gurikesha. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in superior position as the master of everyone. And yet the Lord agrees to be friend, a son, a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master. With gravity, as it is required, it appears that the talk between the master and disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
So here it is said that, O descendant of Bharata, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. And this is what he said in the purport, right? So you can see here that Krishna was smiling. Krishna was smiling because Arjuna and he shared a friendship. relationship of friends. But now Arjuna decided to become a disciple. Likewise, in life, we can relate to it in our day-to-day material life as well. You know, we've got, okay, the formal relationship of guru and disciple would be that of your Diksha Guru, one who gives you Diksha. He gives you the mantra and formally leads you into the disciplined succession, right? But we also have many Siksha Gurus. Siksha Gurus are gurus who teach us, people who teach us things every day in our day-to-day life. Look, our parents are our Siksha Gurus. They are our first Gurus because they are the ones who taught us, you know, how to walk, how to speak, how to eat. They taught us manners. They gave us an education. So they're also Gurus. You can learn from your parents. You can learn from a co-worker. You can learn from other devotees. You can learn from friends. I'm talking in terms of spiritual knowledge, right? So, you know, it's not limited. So we should be very respectful to one another. We all can learn from each other and look at each other as Siksha Gurus. But now in this case, Krishna was smiling because now his friend decided to become his disciple. That was the reason for Krishna's wonderful smile like that. So there's Krishna's smiling face here. There's a very nice bhajan, the Madhur Ashtakam. Sankarshan Prabhu? Can you unmute?
No, I don't know that, Mataji.
You don't know that one. The Sankarshan Prabhu. You know, you miss. Okay, you must learn it and sing it for us at some point on this platform. Sankarshan Prabhu sings so beautifully. I think some of you devotees on this chat here would have heard him sing. Yeah, so I thought maybe you knew that you know, Ashtakam, and you could sing for us a little bit next time. Okay, so back to the notes here. So remember now from the previous class, I said we spoke about the 4 kinds of relationships that we can share with Krishna. Krishna allows us to have these 4 kinds of relationships. One is that of a friend, a parent, a servant, or a conjugal relationship. Arjuna, we said again, we'll say Arjuna's friend relationship changed to that of disciple and guru. Therefore, Krishna was smiling. Imagine how beautiful it looked. Krishna standing in the middle of the battlefield on this chariot. Firstly, Krishna was so much of love he had for Arjuna that he assumed the role of a chariot driver, you know, and he's standing on the chariot and he was just taking instructions from Arjuna. Arjuna said to him, Krishna, please place my chariot in the middle of the battlefield because I want to observe the armies. I want to see what I'm up against. And you know, he was just instructing Krishna, and Krishna absolutely enjoyed this because he likes that loving exchange. He loves that friendship that one can have with him. Of course, it's got to be on a serious level. We can't imitate now. We cannot go and imitate these pure devotees like Arjuna or like Hanumanji, you know, and that kind of thing. I mean, we can't lift a mountain like Lord Hanuman did, right? But you know what? We can follow in their footsteps. We can take a page of their books. And we can understand from the relationships that they shared with the Lord, or they rather share with the Lord, because it's all spiritual and ongoing. We can understand that this is what the Lord means when he says, you're allowed to be either my friend, parent, servant, or conjugal lover. He means that it is possible, and we all have our spiritual identities lying deep within our souls, deep within our hearts, in our souls. We all come from the spiritual world. So at some point when we go back to the spiritual world, we will assume whatever our spiritual identity is. We could have been friends with Krishna, we could have been in a parental relationship, we could have been a servant, we could have been like, you know, one of the conjugal relationships with Krishna. We don't know. But the more we practice, the more we chant, the more we do our devotional service, the more we serve devotees, the more our relationships will get revealed to us. Right. So let's move on to the next verse now. Verse 11. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashochan anavashoshyastvam pragnavaddamscha bhashase katashun katasun agatashumascha nanu sochanti panditah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what? You are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Okay, who's reading for us now? Navikishore Mataji, Hare Krishna. Do you like to read first, Mata? Anybody else? Shall we go back to Paramatma Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, "You are talking like a learned man, but do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is the body and what is the soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition." As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit, and the controller of both. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology, but he did not know the knowledge of matter, soul, and the supreme is even more important than religious formularities. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body.
Okay,
Thank you,
Prabhu. Okay, so now the purport is starting to speak now more about the body and the soul and the difference. Okay, so Arjun, see, when we approach a senior person, a senior devotee, a guru in this instance, we've got to be very humble. We can't speak learned words in front of a learned person, in front of a senior person. We can't do that. So you see how Krishna, as soon as Arjun submitted as a disciple, Krishna took that position now as a guru, and how he chastised his student. He chastised his student, who is Arjuna, and he, indirectly by saying, he called him a fool by saying that you are speaking learned words. You are speaking learned words, and you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. So in other words, you are being foolish, Arjuna. Why are you speaking such learned words and you are mourning for the body? How can you lament for the body? I mean, you're lamenting for this body, which is material, but the soul is eternal. The real person is you inside, is the soul, is the Atma, right? So therefore he called him a fool. And we should not be very careful not to pose as learned in front of our gurus. Okay, so let's go on to verse 12. We're doing okay for time today. 22. We can do this verse. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Natvi evaham jatu nasham, natvam neme janadipaha, nachevana bhavishyamaha, sarve vayam paparam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Never was there a time when I did not exist. Nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Okay, let's read the purport and listen to what Srila Prabhupada has to say. Veronica Mataji, are you ready to read now, or you want to pass for today?
Sorry, Mata. Is this the last one we're doing now?
It might be, because it's
Okay.
already 22. It may be. I don't know if we can do another.
Okay, I'll read
Maybe
it,
just read this page here, which is up on the screen.
which is
if you like. The purport
okay.
in the Vedas,
chapter 2, verse 12. Oh,
verse 12. Yes.
yeah.
Or you can just look at the screen. It's up on the screen if you like.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Chapter 2. What page is it on? Page.
My book, page 78.
Okay. Text
12.
verse 12. Okay. Chapter 2. Is that text?
Yeah,
Never
text
was there
12.
time.
Yes,
Okay,
you can read
perfect.
from the purport in the Vedas.
Okay. Okay. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as in the the Sevastras Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of their different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is also by his plenary portions alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanyas Chaitanyanam Ego Bahunam Yo Vidhati Kamam Tam Atmastam Ye Nupasyanti Dhiras Desham Shanti Saraswati Netaresham. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned, but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord sees clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned and in their liberated situations.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. It's fine. You can stop
Hari-
here. Thank you.
Hari
Hare
Bol.
Krishna. Hare Bol. Okay. Anybody else didn't get a turn and would like to read? I think this is our last verse. Navkishore Mataji, you want to try?
Okay.
Okay. Let me just read a little bit, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and the individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. So here, Srila Prabhupada is speaking of the eternal soul, right? So the soul existed in the past, it's existing now. So we were in bodies in our previous lives. Who knows what kind of bodies we could have been in? We could have been in a body of a plant, in an aquatic body, in an animal body. We could have been in a human body. We could have been in royalty. We could have been in a body of a being who lived in the heavenly planets. We don't know, right? And now we are in these bodies. And we will enter into another body after this life as well. That's what this purport is referring to here, right? Navakishore Mataji, sorry, I saw that you unmuted. I'll give you a second or two. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, did you call me?
Yes. Would you like to read?
Yes, Mataji, sure. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
you can read from the Mayavadi. It's up on the screen. We're doing text 12 on chapter 2. The Mayavadi, if you're looking in your book, it's on page 79.
Yes, the Mayavadi may argue that individuality, am I right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual but material, even accepting the argument that the individuality is material. Then, how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in many ways. Sorry.
Sorry, you're reading off the screen, Mata?
Yes, Mataji.
Sorry. Carry on, Mata. I'm so sorry. Okay, Mataji, you know where you need to start from. See, I've got the text highlighted there in red. The individuality existed in the past. Can you see the red? Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone at the top of the screen.
Okay, if individuality were not a fact, am I right?
Yes, read from there. That's fine.
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna. If individuality were not a fact, then Krishna would not have stressed it so much, even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual, but material, even accepting the arguments that the individuality is material. Then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in many in the past and future. His individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as unauthoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human frailty is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. The Gita is alone is such
the Gita is above
literature.
such literature. Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. So we can't think now, oh, it is somebody speaking the Bhagavad Gita, you know, some great personality. He came down to this earth and he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Then it loses all its importance because we are not giving Krishna the supreme position that he actually holds, right? This knowledge is coming from the Lord directly. So we have to understand first who the speaker is. We've got to understand that the speaker of Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavan himself. Then it will have a lot of importance and value in our lives. The Mayavadis are impersonalists, people who don't believe in the form of God, right? The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional opposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanuja and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. So if your first qualification is to be a devotee of the Lord. If you're a devotee of the Lord, you understand that Krishna is God. And when you understand that, then only will you get the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, in essence. So those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to this great literature. The non-devotees' approach to the teachings of the Gita the non-devotees' approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on the bottle of honey. One cannot taste the honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Correct, right? So if you want to taste the nectar of the sweetness of the honey, you've got to actually open the bottle and get into the honey. Likewise, if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, You've got to be a devotee first to taste the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, you've got to have that faith. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of this. So in chapter 4, we will speak more on that. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. I just want to add something here, devotees. You know, you might find it difficult to understand. We may find it difficult to understand. How can one be envious of the Lord? Who can be envious of God himself? Yes, but you do get people like that. Firstly, if you're a Mayavadi, then you're already envious of the Lord because you're saying the Lord doesn't have a form. So you're saying that the Lord is inferior, in other words. Even in Christianity, it says that man is made in the image of Lord, isn't it? So also now, being envious of the Lord means being envious of the Lord's devotees. Because remember, we said before that the devotees are very special to God. The devotees are very special, they hold a very special place in the Lord's heart. So if you are envious of the devotee, you are hurting the Lord. So being envious of the devotee, it means being envious of God himself. Okay, so that's also another very important point on envy. So therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentaries made by Mayavadis, and wants one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of Gita. If individuality refers to empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is as an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as mentioned above. Okay, this is quite a long purport. So we'll just look at a few notes quickly on it. So Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist. So what does this mean? What does this indicate? This indicates that Krishna is original personality of God. Because in the Brahma Samhita here, it is also stated, Adhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. So what Lord Brahma is saying here, he's saying Krishna is the oldest being. And also, although Krishna is the oldest being, he looks like a blooming youth. Adhyam Puran, he's old, oldest, he's the oldest Purusham, the oldest being. But Navayovanam Cha, he's got the blooming beauty of a youth. So when Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, he was 100 years plus. He was over 100 years old. But even if you look at the picture on the cover of Bhagavad Gita as it is, the picture depicts how young and youthful Krishna looked. Or rather, Krishna looks. Okay. So he is a supreme original creator. Even in the Sri Isha Upanishad, there's reference to Isha Vasyam idam sarvam yad kinsha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita madridakashyati svedhanam. So here Isha, who's Isha? Ish is God. Ish means God. It's reference to Krishna. Isha Vasyam. So Krishna, the Lord, controls everything in this universe. He is the controller of both animate and inanimate. So if he is the supreme controller and the original person, it means that he is the original person. Okay, so therefore it comes back to this point here where Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist. He is the engineer of creation. Okay. It's already 5:02, so I think we're going to have to stop here and we're going to have to leave text 13 for next week. And I'll just open up the chat, please. All your realizations, any questions? Okay, any questions? Hare Krishna. Paramatma Prabhu, want to say something quickly?
Oh, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I just want some clarity about the verse on Isha Vasya. Where is it found, Mataji?
The Isha Upanishad, it's mantra
Also,
number 2.
so it's not in the Bhagavad.
Sorry? No,
It's not
that's just, that's just notes.
Oh, thank you, Mataji.
Ishavasyam idam sarvam is the mantra number 2 from Sri Isha Upanishad.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji.
Okay. Remember that verse 1 of Isha Upanishad is Purnamada Purnamidam. We discussed it previously.
Oh, thank you, Mataji.
Anybody else? Sarat Prabhu, you like to say something?
Yeah, no, Mataji, nothing.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Mataji, actually, sorry, Mataji, last week I couldn't attend, Mataji, because
No, not a problem.
actually, I'm now in Dubai, Mataji. Yesterday only I reached here.
Okay, all right, that's nice.
I come for temple service, Mataji.
Okay, good, very good.
Yeah,
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for making the effort. Thank you.
Actually, Mataji, I come for your purpose to distribute books, Mataji. Here.
Oh, excellent. Book distribution is such a wonderful service.
Yeah, I was doing that in Kuwait to Arab books, Mataji, to Muslims.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so
Wonderful.
I got
Bye.
now
All
here.
glories to your service.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to say anything? Kadruta Mataji?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for wonderful class.
Thank you,
Like
Mother.
summary, I understand that all these verses are like in Sri Upanishad. We must understand we are eternal souls, part and parcels from Krishna, who is Ishvara, and we must find our position beside to Krishna. Like Arjuna started to understand, he is not this body, he is a soul, and started surrender to Krishna, and his friendship relation with Krishna changed in relation between disciple and guru.
Yes.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah,
Very
excellent.
wonderful.
Thank you. A lovely point, Mata. Anybody else want to say anything? Ravikishore Mataji? Anybody before we close?
Thanks for the beautiful class, dear Sarvanga.
Thank you, Veronica Mataji. Thanks so much for attending. Okay, so let's go on to Nishingadev Pranams now. Anybody like to lead the pranams? Who would like to sing Nishingadev Pranam today? Come. Let somebody else sing and we'll follow. You singing, Veronica Mataji?
Yeah, okay. I'm singing.
Who was singing just now? I heard humming.
I was.
Was it you? Okay. Sing a little bit loudly and we'll all sing together with you, right?
Okay.
Come.
I was. Okay, I'll just sing a little bit louder.
Right. Thank you.
You gonna play the mridanga? You gonna play?
I'll play. You can, if you got kartals, you can
play the
or I will
kartal.
play. Okay, I'll play for you.
Okay. Shri Sutram ki jai. Namaste Narishingaya Pralad Ladadayenge Hiranya Kashi Purvakshaha Hiranya Kashi Purvakshaha Rasatana Kalaye Ito nisimho parto nisimho Ito nisimho parto nisimho Yato yamitato nisimho
Yato yamitato nashingo.
Kahe nisimho Hitaya nisimho Kahe nisimho Nishinho Nisimhamade Sharanapapade Nisimhamade Sharanapapade Tava Chara Kamalavare Napapade Tava kara kamalavare kamadbhuta shringa Dalita hiranyakashipu tanubringa Keshavatita narahari rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tava Kara Kamala Adbhuta Shringa Dalita
Hiranyakashipu tanubringa
Keshavatita
narahari
Rupa Jaya
Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jayo Nrsimha Dev Jayo Nrsimha
Jaya Nrsimhadev, 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 Jai Nrsimhadev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jai Prahlad
Prabhupada Shri Nrsimha Bhagwan ki Jai Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Om Nama Om Vishnupada Paramhansa Parivarkacharya Sutra. His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupada Paramhansa Parivarkacharya Sutra. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Mukund Radha Giri Govardhan ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Mayapur Jagannath Puri Gangapur Arpadi Kurukshetra Ayodhya Dwarika Dham ki Jai Shri Ganga Mai ki Jai Yamuna Mai ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the same devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the same devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the same devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Vanchikapatarubhyascha. Kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo. Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you very much, Veronica Mataji. Very sweet kirtan.
Was it okay?
Yes, no, it was very nice. Anything done with love and devotion is always sweet sounding, and the Lord always accepts. So maybe like next week, others can also, we can all take turns in doing Nrsimha Pranam. It will be very nice. Whoever wants to, please indicate and leave. Right. So that ends our session for today, and we shall meet next week. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Tari.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank
you, Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.